Film, literature, popular culture has this strange, weird power. It has the power to inspire people and create something in them to such an extent that the original work expands beyond the medium into other areas, into the real world. I'm talking like memorabilia. I'm talking people reenacting bits of the books, bits of the films. I mean, on this desk alone we have Sweep, we've got Sooty down there. This old chestnut. A Funko Pop of a character from Batman, the Scarecrow. And more concerning, this in this box, and it really does smell. It's like super powerful, but it's a kind of nothing smell. Is this? This is a Saltburn bath bomb, which at the time of recording Lush are selling, because Saltburn is one of those films that has very quickly expanded beyond its medium, and this smells like crap! Fucking hell, that's powerful. You know where the best place to exemplify this is? Dublin. Let's go. So, 16th of June 1904, a young man goes on a date with a woman by the wonderful name of Nora Barnacle. She stood him up once before, but this time she doesn't stand him up, and they're together for the rest of his life. The day becomes something special for him, this young man. So 20 years later, he writes a book. One of the most difficult to read books in the world. Ulysses. The man, of course, is James Joyce. So what's the point of this story? Well, for such a difficult to read book, Ulysses has an extraordinary life beyond the pages. It is beloved by people. It is phenomenon. Take this boat I'm on, for instance. Sorry, ferry. It's called the Ulysses. Concerning, considering the original Ulysses spent 20 years at sea. But all around there are references to the book, references to James Joyce. This bar, for instance, is the Leo Bloom bar, named after the main character. There are sweets named after characters. There is a food emporium by the name of Nora Barnacles. There is the James Joyce Lounge upstairs. It's almost like this entire ferry is dedicated to the book. So how did it happen? How did this difficult to read book become... You can tell this ferry is moving, my camera is shaking. How did this difficult to read book become such a phenomenon? I've come to Joyce's home city, dear dirty Dublin, to find out why. My first stop is the Museum of Irish Literature. And guess who's hanging around outside? So these are all translations of Joyce, which 99 of them on this shelf. Notoriously difficult writers to translate, obviously. But here I can see Portrait of the Artist of the Young Man, Dubliners, Ulysses of course, and Finnegan's Wake, which, yeah, that's allegedly driven some translators mad. Now, it does make sense, in a way. I'll come back to this later, but trust me, it makes sense. By every staircase, they've got these quotes from his work as well. Two from Ulysses here, Meeting of the Waters, and this lovely one here, Longest way round is the shortest way home. You don't read Joyce for the plot. You read him for the beauty of the language. And that's just proof, isn't it? It's funny. Nobody wanted to publish Joyce at first. Nobody wanted to publish Dubliners. They burned the first edition. Nobody wanted to publish Ulysses. It ended up being published by Shakespeare and Company in Paris, nearly bankrupted the lady who did it, the publishing. It was banned in America until 1934. But, looking around here, around the Museum of Literature, what I notice is that Joyce has become the poster child for Irish literature, and he is a modern day face of Dublin. He's almost like a symbol of the city now. And that's no surprise because, well, his books evoke the spirit of Dublin. This building is actually quite interesting because it's owned by University College Dublin, and this is where James Joyce studied, in these very rooms. So it kind of makes it don't say a nice place for a museum of literature, but almost a homage. No, not a homage. I may come back to you with the right word when I think about it.
Having found nothing, I decided to visit one of the locations featured in the book, Sweeney's Pharmacy, which also has connections with Oscar Wilde.
I didn't really want to film anything in Sweeney's because it was like really small and there were other people in there having a look around, but as you can tell from like the little bit of footage I got, the pictures, this is kind of like a shrine to James Joyce, to Ulysses. They've got books there, they do readings, they do little magnets, they do the actual soap which is mentioned in the book, which Bloom buys. The lady in the shop said that people reckon this is the best soap they've ever had, and gotta say, it smells.
A handbag?
I've really got to stop sniffing things. It smells divine. It's like the nicest smelling soap I've ever tasted. And this is just a single example of Ulysses going beyond the book, existing beyond the book. And it's not the only example. I found a Bloom's Hotel with murals on the wall of Bloom and Daedalus and Buck Mulligan. I found a pub, which I didn't get a picture of, called Mulligan's and Haynes. Ulysses is everywhere in this city. This city, despite Ulysses being controversial initially, took the book to his heart. So here, right outside the Archaeology Museum, we have yet more evidence of Ulysses, part of a trail running through the city, which National Library is just over that way. There's a chapter in the book that takes place there, and he's like, this trail follows Bloom's route through the city. Molly Malone, the other symbol of Dublin. It's supposed to be considered good luck to rub the statue's brass knockers. There we go. And that makes 2 in a lifetime. The one thing I haven't found is why. Why did it become so popular? Why did this city take this difficult to read but extraordinary book and make it the most famous piece of work to ever come out of Dublin? I think to find out, I've got to go back to where the book begins. To a place that has been described as one of the most unique addresses in fiction. This is Sandy Cove, outskirts of Dublin. Now, my first copy of Ulysses had this. I bought it at the Waterstones in Warrington, and it had this Martello Tower, a Napoleonic fort, on the cover. Unusual for a book set in Ireland, Dublin, which is all about Dublin. Why the hell?
Why the crap?
What the hell does a Martello Tower have to do with Dublin? Well, like I said, one of the most unique and unusual addresses in fiction. So before we get there, a bit of context for you. 1800s. 1798, the Irish rebel. They try and get Napoleon to come over, kick the English out. Pitt doesn't like it, promises Catholic emancipation in exchange for an act of union, blah blah blah. That doesn't go down well with the king, unsurprisingly. But in order to prevent a French invasion, all along this coast, the English build a series of fortifications, Martello Towers, like this one here, where in the early 1900s, Senor Joyce was living. So Joyce only stayed here for 6 nights. He left after one of the other residents, Trench, woke up in the middle of the night and started screaming about a panther and shooting things. And then the guy who rented the tower, Gogarty, he took the weapon, the revolver, off Trench and then started shooting at the saucepans over Joyce's bed, which I'm assuming is that bed there. So not long after, Joyce and Nora Barnacle, this was 1904, they decided they were going to leave Ireland. And did you know, James Joyce also opened the first cinema in Dublin in 1909. So this museum it's small, it's very interesting, it's very fascinating, it's almost like a shrine to Ulysses, but again, what I can't see is evidence of why. Why did Ulysses become so popular? Why did Dublin take it to its heart? Why is James Joyce now the literary figurehead of Dublin? I'll think about it. In fact, there's one more place I could go to find out. But we'd need to go back into Dublin Centre to find it. You know, I think this might be the perfect place to do a little bit of a reading. Just the opening paragraph, I think. Stately, plump Buck Mulligan came from the stairhead, bearing a bowl of lava on which a mirror and a razor lay crossed. A yellow dressing gown, ungirdled, was sustained gently behind him by the mild morning air. He held the bowl aloft and intoned, "In troibo ad altere Dei." Halted, he peered down the dark, winding stairs, and called up coarsely, "Come up, Kinch, come up, you fearful Jesuit."
Down to one last hope, I journeyed back to the other side of Dublin, to the James Joyce Centre, yet another museum / shrine to the author and his work.
Well, we've got Mr. Bloom's front door here, saved from demolition. And they moved it like here to this museum. I have to say, one of the things I've noticed while I've been here is that Dublin has some very nice doors, and this looks like one of them. Again, this is a fascinating place. I've learnt some things here, mainly about the publication of Ulysses. It was published in Paris in 21. But the one thing that's missing, the answer to our question, why? Why did Dublin take this strange book, this book which Joyce himself referred to as unreadable? Why did Dublin take it to its heart?
For my last meal in Dublin, I visited Davy Burns, yet another Ulysses location. Want to know who was on the menu?
If you were to pick a book to be associated with your city, Dublin, for instance, you wouldn't pick Ulysses. It is frustrating. It is difficult to read. It is impossible to read in places. That said, this is, for what it is, for all the complex themes, for everything contained within its pages, for the way it's written, for what it does with the story of Odysseus, for how it uses Dublin, for everything that went into this book. It is a flipping, amazing achievement. It is astonishing in that regard. Even if it's far too challenging for most people to read, for most people to even understand, and even I have had difficulty with this, it still stands as something astonishing. And for me, personally, I think this transcends literature. It is more than a book. It's not what we expect when we take a book from the shelf. It is something different, something other, something unique. Personally, I think this isn't a work of literature, it's a work of art. And I think it's the fact that this is so unique, so other, so astonishing an achievement. I think that is the reason why Dublin embraced this book. That is the reason why Dublin and Ulysses became so associated. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to eat a banana. Good night.
This is Past Force.